Guilt has a sound. It echoes than any accusation. The weekend felt like it had never ended. Monday came heavy, like a blanket I couldn't breathe under. Since the scream, since the blood, since the look on Amber's face and Lee's haunting stare that cut through the chaos. I hadn't felt like myself since that night. Everything in me still trembled from it. I didn't mean to hurt her. God, I didn't. Chloe had just slipped through. I could still feel that burning pressure under my skin when it happened, like fire clawing to be free. I hadn't answered her voice since. Every time she tried to whisper, I shut her out. I just couldn't listen. The air in Winter's High was thick enough to choke on. No one smiled. No one laughed. The tension followed us all the way into the assembly hall, where the entire school sat, buzzing with nervous whispers. The principal stood at the podium, her voice calm but cutting through the murmurs like a knife. "Student of Winter's High," she began, standing on stage, arms folded behind her back, her tone heavy with restrained authority. "I know many of you attended Danny Hunter's party on Saturday night. What happened there was deeply troubling." The room fell quiet immediately. The principal continued. "One of our students, Amber Evans, sustained serious injuries that night. The details are still unclear. She is currently receiving medical attention and, thankfully, is stable. However," she paused, her gaze sweeping the room, "the authorities have opened an investigation to determine what exactly happened that night." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Hushed gasps, exchanged glances, and the rustle of clothes. My heart thudded against my ribs. The police are now involved. Every student present at the event will be called in for questioning one by one. This is not a witch hunt and no longer school business. It's a legal matter and we will find the truth. The irony of those words wasn't lost on me. A witch hunt? That's exactly what it felt like. My stomach dropped. Questioning. Police. The words sank into my skin like ice water. I lowered my head, feeling the weight of invisible eyes burning into me. I could almost hear them whispering it already. Addison was there. She was with Amber. She saw everything. We at Winter's High have always upheld a reputation for integrity and discipline. The principal continued, her heels clicking softly against the wooden stage. Let this serve as a reminder. Violence and recklessness have consequences. And if anyone here knows something, you're expected to come forward. Her voice echoed, each word heavier than the last. As I glanced around the hall, Kelly sat beside me, her fingers twisted tightly in her lap. I could tell she was trying to look calm, but her foot wouldn't stop bouncing. Leo sat near the middle, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked up at me once, just briefly, and the small flicker of concern in his eyes was enough to make my throat tighten. Across the room, Lee sat still like stone, his face unreadable. His eyes weren't on the principal, they were on me. Cold, steady, silent. It lasted only a second, but it was enough to make me look away. And just beyond him, I saw Amber's friends, Jessica and Steffi. They were sitting on the opposite side of the hall. Their faces were pale, their whispers sharp. They weren't crying anymore, they weren't whispering. They were just staring right at me. By the time the principal finished her speech, my palms were damp, my heartbeat loud in my ears. I swallowed hard, clutching the edge of my seat as the principal dismissed us with a final warning about truth, consequences, and conduct. The whole hall erupted in whispers. My name wasn't said out loud, but I could feel it hanging in the air, passing from one mouth to another like poison. The hallway felt longer than usual when we filed out of the assembly. Conversations buzzed around me, every voice a blur of speculation. Did you hear she got electrocuted or something? No way. I heard it was a fight. Like a real one. Someone said she flew across the room. I kept walking. Each whisper felt like a thorn brushing against my skin. The walls of Winter's High, usually alive with laughter, now hummed with tension. It was like the whole building was holding its breath, waiting for the next piece of the story to drop. Kelly jogged up beside me, clutching her bagged her chest. She looped her arm around mine. "Hey," she said softly, her voice trembling just a little. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "They said the police are already on campus," she whispered. "They're starting questioning today." My stomach tightened. "Today?" Kelly nodded, lowering her voice. "They're starting with the ones who were closest to the scene." That meant me. The hallway forked ahead. One path leading toward class, the other toward the administrative wing, where the investigation would be taking place. The latter seemed to pull at me, like gravity. When I looked up, I caught sight of Leo standing by his locker, talking to Danny and JJ. His usual brightness was gone. Even from here, I could see the crease between his brows, the tension in his jaw. When his eyes met mine, something flickered, relief maybe, or worry. He excused himself from the group and walked over. "Addie," he said quietly, "you holding up?" I nodded again, but my throat felt too dry for words. "You know they're gonna ask about you, right?" His tone wasn't accusing, just honest. "Amber pointed at you, Addie. Everyone saw it." The memory of that moment slammed back into me like cold water. Amber's trembling finger, her bloodied mouth, her wide, terrified eyes. "I didn't do anything, Leo," I whispered. "I know," he said, his gaze steady. "But you've got to keep it together when they ask. Just tell them exactly what you saw." I nodded again, forcing air into my lungs. Kelly squeezed my hand once before we all split for our classes. By the time I sat down at my desk, I felt completely drained. The teacher's voice sounded miles away. The scratching of pencils, the flipping of pages, the hum of the fluorescent lights. It all blurred into background noise. I stared at the open book on my desk, pretending to read. The letters swam across the page like insects. All I could see was the flash of Amber's terrified eyes, the scream that tore through the air, the spark that burst from my fingertips, and then nothing. She deserved it. Chloe's voice hissed faintly in my head. "She pushed you." I bit the inside of my cheek, pretending not to hear her. A knock at the door snapped me out of it. The teacher paused mid-sentence, turned, and after a few hushed words with someone outside, her eyes landed on me. "Addison," she said softly, "the principal wants to see you." The whole class turned to look. My stomach dropped to the floor. The hallway felt too long. Every footstep echoed louder than the last. When I reached the principal's office, I saw them before she even spoke. Two people sitting across from her desk. A man in a dark jacket. A woman with a notepad. Too formal. Too official. The principal gestured for me to come in. "Ms. Zachary," the man said as he stood. "I'm Detective Hayes. This is Officer Miller. Please take a seat." My throat felt dry as I sat. The principal's face was calm, but her eyes flickered with something, sympathy or suspicion I couldn't tell. "Addison," the detective began, his voice calm and low. "You were present at the party when Ms. Evans was injured, correct?" "Yes," I whispered. "I was there." He nodded, jotting something down. "Did you see what happened?" I hesitated. My heart started racing. The truth burned in my chest like fire. Hot, wild, begging to come out. But I couldn't. I heard the scream, I said slowly. When I got there, she was already on the ground. Everyone rushed in right after. The detective's pen scratched softly against the paper. "Did you notice anything unusual before that? Any conflict, argument, tension?" My fingers tightened around each other. "We weren't exactly friends," I admitted, voice small. He studied me for a long second. "And you're sure that's all?" I forced myself to meet his gaze. "That's all." The silence that followed was unbearable. The ticking clock grew louder and louder until I thought it might split my head open. Finally, he nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Zachary. That'll be all for now." I stood on shaky legs. The principal gave me a polite nod as I left, but there was something cold and uncertain in her eyes that made me want to disappear. The hallway outside was empty. Quiet. My footsteps echoed. I took one deep breath and realized that even though I'd lied to them, lied to myself. Chloe hadn't left. She was still there, lingering, waiting, and for the first time, I felt her smile in the back of my mind. You can't hide from what you are, Addie. Each snap from the bell kept dragging me towards the ending of the day. I felt like I'd been carrying the weight of a world that wasn't mine to bear. The day dragged in slow, heavy loops, whispers in the hallway, anxious footsteps echoing against the tiled floors, the stiff, polite smiles of teachers pretending not to know. Even the air at Winter's High felt strange, quiet, unsettled. There was no Amber today, no sharp laughter, no cruel remarks drifting through the locker rows, no perfume that clung too sweetly to the air. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, it just felt wrong. The school had lost something. Not joy, not innocence, but the illusion that everything here was ordinary. Everyone walked with lowered heads, their gazes flicking toward the security cameras like guilty secrets waiting to be caught. The interrogations went on until the end of the day. They called people in one by one, friends, witnesses, bystanders. Each time a name echoed through the intercom, the class would stiffen, and my chest would tighten like a fist around my lungs. By the time the last bell rang, my nerves were shredded. I exhaled deeply, wanting to head home, to crawl under the blanket of my soft bed. But Leo offered to take me for a walk around town, said it might help clear my head. I didn't argue. The air outside was cool, the kind that tasted faintly of dusk and damp grass. The sun was lowering itself behind the trees, painting the world in fading gold and shadow. For the first time since Saturday, I could almost breathe. Leo didn't say much, just walked beside me, occasionally kicking at pebbles, letting the silence stretch. But the silence between us wasn't empty. It was gentle. Every so often, he'd glance at me, eyes full of concern. We looped around the block, just long enough for the orange sky to fade into violet. When we finally reached home, I noticed the second car in the driveway, one that didn't belong to either of our parents. Something in my stomach twisted. Leo pushed the door open, calling out casually, "We're back." "Oh, there she is," Mom said with a relieved smile the second she saw me. She stood near the living room couch, hands clasped in that polite, nervous way she did when company was over. But the moment my eyes followed her line of sight, the air inside turned cold. Detective Hayes sat on the couch, the same polite expression from the principal's office pasted neatly on his face. Beside him was Officer Miller, her notepad balanced on her knee. They were here again. "Ms. Zachary." Detective Hayes greeted warmly. "I hope we're not intruding. We just have a few follow-up questions, nothing serious." Mom smiled at me, encouraging, trying to make it look normal. "It's all right, sweetheart. They just need a few clarifications, that's all." I forced my legs to move, sat beside her on the couch. Leo took the armchair near Dad, his posture tense. The living room felt too bright, the lamplight harsh against the detective's badges. Hayes leaned forward slightly, his tone soft, conversational. "We just want to make sure we understand the dynamics, Addison. We've heard from several students that you and Amber weren't exactly enemies, but not friends either. Is that fair to say?" My throat felt dry. "Yes, I guess so. And it's also been mentioned," he continued carefully, flipping through his notes, "that Amber had a history of teasing you. Some even called it bullying." Mom shifted beside me, uncomfortable. I could feel her eyes flicking toward me, worried. "Amber was difficult sometimes," I said, choosing every word like it could detonate. "But we never fought." "Not really." He nodded slowly. "Right. Though we also learned there was some tension between you two at the party, during a game of truth or dare." My heart stumbled. It wasn't serious. Just stupid party stuff. His eyes lifted from the paper, calm but too sharp. Of course. Still, it's interesting that shortly after that, the incident occurred. Dad's voice cut through the air like a blade. That's enough. The room went still. Detective Hayes straightened. Sir, we're just... You're badgering my daughter, Dad said, his tone calm but iron-hard. She's already spoken to you once. You will not continue this line of questioning without legal counsel present. If you have further concerns, speak to our lawyer. Silence. Hayes exhaled slowly, shutting his notebook. Understood, Mr. Zachary. He stood, offering a small, professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. Thank you for your time, Addison. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. When the door finally closed behind them, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Mom reached for my hand, her thumb brushing lightly over my knuckles. It's all right, honey. You didn't do anything wrong. But I couldn't meet her eyes. The words didn't feel true anymore. I excused myself and went upstairs. The walls felt too close, the house too quiet. I closed my bedroom door and pressed my back against it, my breath trembling out of me. The world outside my window was dark now. Only the faint hum of crickets and distant streetlights kept me company. I sank onto the edge of my bed, my head in my hands. The guilt crawled back up my throat like smoke, thick, bitter, impossible to swallow. If I hadn't gone to that party, if I hadn't let Chloe take over, if I just walked away when Amber laughed. I hated this. Hurting people, drawing attention, being the name whispered in every hallway. I just wanted to disappear again, fade into the background, the way I used to before she woke up inside me. To be continued. Tell me in the comments, do you think Addison can keep Chloe under control? If you felt the tension, drop a black heart in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the next episode.